Bro, we need to talk about the massive consequence that just dropped, because the cliff attack on Komiya and Kinoshita changes absolutely everything we thought we knew about the special exam. You have to understand, up until this exact second, the uninhabited island exam was being treated like a brutal but ultimately standard endurance test. Students were worried about managing their water rations, desperately trying to score points in minigames, and just surviving the harsh terrain. But the moment we see Komiya and Kinoshita lying unconscious at the bottom of that steep incline, completely battered, the entire genre of this arc fundamentally shifts. This isn't just a high school survival test anymore. This is a literal hunting ground. We are looking at a deliberate, vicious, physical attack orchestrated completely in the shadows. The sheer brutality of it, leaving two students completely incapacitated with severe leg injuries in the middle of a massive, isolated forest, shatters the illusion of safety provided by the school's monitoring watches. The alarms didn't go off immediately, which implies a terrifying level of calculation from whoever did this. The school isn't protecting them. The safety net is completely gone. They are entirely on their own, and a predator is loose in the forest, playing a game with entirely different and far more violent rules. To really understand why this bloody betrayal happened, we need to go back and look at the hidden clues that most people completely missed during the chaos. It is so easy to get caught up in the immediate panic of the scene, but let's break down the psychological environment that actually allowed this to happen. The island is vast, and we already know the GPS tracking has massive blind spots. Whoever pushed them knew exactly when to strike, perfectly isolating them from the rest of their group and ensuring absolutely no other classes were in the immediate vicinity to witness the fall. But here is the most chilling part of the entire sequence. The attacker didn't finish the job on the third member of the group. They deliberately left a witness. Think about the twisted psychology of that for a second. Did they just get interrupted? Or, terrifyingly, was leaving Shinohara alive and traumatized part of the master plan all along? Leaving a survivor creates an infectious panic. It forces the school's cold, mechanical rules to kick in, slowly crushing the remaining group member under the weight of inevitable expulsion. This single question, who pushed them, becomes the gravitational center of the entire story right now, pulling every major player into a massive, tangled web of dark alliances and hidden motives. Shinohara admits she saw someone push them but couldn't see their face. And low-key, if the teachers force her to retire right now, her whole group is completely cooked. The sheer mechanical terror of the school's rules is pressing down on her like a vice. The special exam explicitly dictates that if a group becomes unable to continue, they are eliminated. Because Komiya and Kinoshita are critically injured and essentially out of the game, Shinohara is left completely alone. The teachers arrive and bluntly state the brutal reality. They actually suspect she might be lying about a third party just to cover up a clumsy accident. And as a solo player, her chances of surviving the rest of the grueling exam are absolute zero. If she retires alongside her injured group members, the penalty is immediate expulsion. She is standing at the edge of a cliff, both literally and academically. The sheer, raw dread in her voice when she says she couldn't move isn't just about the physical danger of the attacker, it's the crushing, suffocating realization that her entire high school life is essentially over, violently ripped away by an unseen enemy hiding in the dark.
Which brings us to our next major turning point. Ike makes a choice.
This is where the emotional truth of the entire situation hits the hardest. Instead of taking the easy way out, Ike steps up in a massive, unexpected way. If you've been following this story from the beginning, you know exactly who Ike usually is. He's the guy who constantly complains, the guy who always looks for the easiest path, and the guy who desperately avoids taking any real responsibility. He is basically the ultimate background character just trying to survive without doing any heavy lifting. When the teachers ruled that Shinohara has to either survive alone or face expulsion, the logical, self-preserving move for anyone in Ike's position is to walk away. Shinohara even tells him to leave her alone, crying out that he's just going to drag his own group down if he tries to help a sinking ship. She is practically begging him to save himself because she knows she is already a ghost in the eyes of the school. But he doesn't walk away. He plants his feet and outright refuses to let her be expelled. This brilliantly illustrates the catastrophic, cascading effect of the attacker's plan. Komiya is out, Kinoshita is out, Shinohara is an isolated target. By choosing to tether himself to Shinohara's survival, Ike is voluntarily stepping directly into the crosshairs of this failing group. Ike risking his own exam to protect her isn't just a sweet character moment. It's the exact trigger that forces Ayanokoji to step out of the shadows. Ayanokoji is watching this entire interaction. He sees Ike, a highly valuable piece of Class D's social fabric, about to completely throw away his own safety net. For Ayanokoji, the math suddenly and violently changes. If he lets Ike crash and burn with Shinohara, the structural damage to his own class will be irreparable. And that forces our protagonist's hand, leading straight into Ayanokoji's shadow deals. Okay, but here's the thing. Ayanokoji realizes he has to actively manipulate the exam's mechanics to save his classmate, and watching him work behind the scenes here is absolute cinema. He can't just walk up to the teachers and ask for a favor. He has to completely rewire the geopolitical landscape of the entire island in a matter of hours, finding a high-performing group that could absorb Shinohara and protect her from elimination. But no elite group is going to willingly take on dead weight without a massive, undeniable incentive. So Ayanokoji identifies the only two leaders on the island who have the capital, the authority, and the sheer audacity to pull off a mid-exam roster change: Ryuen and Sakiyanagi. The way he approaches this, quietly, methodically, while seemingly just casually fishing by a river, is classic Ayanokoji. He flawlessly masks his desperate need to save his classmates behind a veil of cold transactional logic. He effortlessly pits Ryuen's cold calculation against Sakiyanagi's strict demand for equality to build a perfect safety net. When he approaches Ryuen, Ayanokoji knows he can't appeal to empathy. Ryuen literally says he doesn't hesitate to cut off dead weight, but Ayanokoji frames the survival of Komiya and Kinoshita not as a heroic rescue mission, but as preserving Ryuen's own valuable assets. He convinces Ryuen that those two still have distinct uses moving forward. Then, Ayanokoji brilliantly pivots to Sakiyanagi. She is completely uninterested in helping Class D, finding absolutely zero merit in it for Class A. But Ayanokoji knows exactly how to play her ego and her desire for balance. He offers a mysterious condition, a trade of favors that guarantees Class A won't suffer a deficit. Ayanokoji dropping this exact line to Ryuen shows he is playing 4D chess, balancing two ruthless leaders who don't even realize the full scope of his grand design. When he looks at Ryuen and calmly states, "If you cooperate, the probability goes up," it is absolutely not a plea for help. It's an undeniable mathematical fact, presented as a deeply subtle threat. He's implicitly telling Ryuen that without his cooperation, Ryuen's own class will suffer unnecessary, catastrophic casualties. This is a masterclass in psychological negotiation, and it is genuinely terrifying to watch someone use pure probability and math as a literal weapon. Ayanokoji never begs. He never raises his voice or shows an ounce of panic. He merely arranges the pieces on the board so that his opponent's most selfish, calculated choices inevitably align exactly with his own hidden objectives. He flawlessly secures the lifeline for Shinohara, without ever revealing to anyone how much he actually cares about maintaining the stability of his own class's foundation. Meanwhile, on a completely different frequency, we have to talk about the unstoppable Koenji. Because while Ayanokoji is plotting intricately in the shadows, Koenji is out here asserting pure, terrifying physical dominance over the entire exam. No way anyone actually expected Koenji to surge to first place in the comprehensive rankings, proving his stats are genuinely off the charts. Think about what this actually means. And honestly, this serves as a massive mirror for us as the audience. Just like the other students in the show, we completely underestimated Koenji's bizarre solo strategy. We all thought his sheer arrogance would be his immediate downfall. The other elite students are out there forming massive alliances, obsessively hoarding resources, and agonizing over the most efficient tactical routes to gather points. But Koenji is entirely solo. He has absolutely no support system, no safety net, and no backup. Yet through sheer, unadulterated physical superiority and an almost psychopathic level of self-confidence, he is outscoring entire coalitions of top-tier students. It's a massive, ringing wake-up call to the rest of the school. Koenji isn't just a quirky, narcissistic background character, he's a literal biological anomaly tearing through the island. So, the absolutely crucial point here is how this ties directly into the core mechanics of the exam itself. Ayanokoji explains this exact survival concept of pacing to Nanase, which makes Koenji's raw, unrestrained stamina look even more unbelievable. While walking through the dense forest with Nanase, Ayanokoji breaks down exactly why you cannot just sprint through the early days of this test. The island aggressively drains your energy, hydration is terrifyingly scarce, and burning out too early leaves you entirely vulnerable when the massive point multipliers actually matter most later on. It's fundamentally a game of strict resource management. Ayanokoji is deliberately holding back, staying entirely out of the top rankings to meticulously preserve his stamina and stay completely off the radar. By explaining this deeply logical, calculated approach to survival, the narrative brilliantly highlights how absurd Koenji's existence truly is. Koenji isn't pacing himself. He is basically redlining his engine 24/7 without ever changing the oil, and somehow, defying all biological logic, his engine simply refuses to brake. But wait, the tension completely shifts gears with the revelation of Tsushishiro's hidden fleet. Because while the students are busy battling each other for points, Ayanokoji receives a highly covert intelligence drop from Mashima-sensei that changes the entire reality of the exam. We are suddenly and violently reminded that Ayanokoji isn't just fighting other high schoolers. He is fighting the very adult administration that controls the island itself. Tsukishiro, the man sent directly by the White Room to expel Ayanokoji, is finally making his move. This is the hidden detail most viewers completely missed. Tsukishiro secretly ordered a second boat and is actively hunting Ayanokoji personally. Think about the strict protocol for an exam of this massive scale. You have one medical helicopter and one official boat for severe emergencies. But Mashima-sensei uncovers a massive, glaring anomaly. There is a secret, completely off-the-books second boat docked at the island. Why on earth do you need an unregistered vessel in the middle of nowhere? You need it to bring dangerous external operatives onto the island totally undetected, or you need it to secretly transport an expelled or injured student away before anyone can ask any questions. Add to that the terrifying fact that Tsukishiro has fully left the command center and is actively patrolling the dangerous island on foot under the guise of routine inspections. He is rapidly closing the net. This changes the entire trajectory of the episode, reminding us that the stakes aren't just exam points anymore. It's Ayanokokuji's literal survival. Up until now, we've comfortably watched Ayanokokuji effortlessly outsmart arrogant high schoolers. But now, he is being actively hunted by ruthless adults with unlimited authority, naval assets, and absolutely zero moral compass. Every single step Ayanokokuji takes in the forest from this point forward is a rapid calculation of sightlines, blind spots, and desperate escape routes. The psychological weight pressing down on him is immense, even if his cold expression never changes. He has to save Shinohara's group, manage a potential assassination squad led by the acting director of the school, and simultaneously deal with Nanase. And we really need to talk about Nanase here, because she is acting incredibly suspicious right next to him. She is constantly shadowing his movements, asking oddly specific, probing questions, and staring at him with this dead, unreadable expression that practically screams she has a massive hidden agenda. She is a literal ticking time bomb, walking right beside him in the middle of a hunting ground. And that perfectly sets up the moment that changes absolutely everything: the 20 million bounty. Because if you want to talk about shifting the power dynamics of the entire series, this is it. The fact that there is a 20 million point bounty for expelling Ayanokoji perfectly explains every single bizarre, chaotic betrayal we've seen so far in this explainer. 20 million points. That is enough to instantly, no questions asked, buy a ticket straight to Class A. It is the ultimate golden ticket of this universe, and it turns Ayanokoji into a walking, breathing jackpot. Suddenly, the chaotic and aggressive actions of the first-year students make perfect, terrifying sense. They aren't just trying to win a survival exam, they are actively competing in a shadow bounty hunt. It completely recontextualizes the shocking violence we saw at the start of the episode with the cliff attack. When a prize this massive is on the line, pushing someone off a cliff to create an opening or to permanently eliminate a rival bounty hunter isn't just a possibility, it's practically expected behavior. Think about how utterly terrifying that reality is. The first-year students aren't looking at Ayanokoji as a respected senior, they are looking at him as a winning lottery ticket, and they are more than willing to shed blood to cash it in. This leads directly into the confrontation between Amasawa and Yagami. Amasawa is incredibly cold here, ruthlessly backing Yagami into a psychological corner until he has absolutely no choice but to spill his master plan. She doesn't just casually ask him what he's doing. She surgically dissects his entire logic. She corners him, explicitly threatens his carefully hidden agenda, and points out that if he tries to operate solo to claim the massive bounty, he's going to suffer massive losses, dropping very dark hints about putting the people he actually values in extreme danger. Yagami, who usually has a smooth answer for everything, is visibly sweating. His eyes dart around. He is fundamentally outmatched by her sheer, overwhelming psychological pressure. And under that crushing weight, he finally cracks. He admits that he cannot secure the 20 million point bounty alone, and he is violently forced to reveal his ultimate trump card. Which leaves us with this massive, terrifying, unresolved thread. Why exactly is Kushida the key to the 20 million points, and who is going to pay the ultimate price? Amasawa zeroes in on this specific detail immediately. Why Kushida? Yagami insists with absolute certainty that she is the most crucial piece on the entire board for taking down Ayanokoji. We already know Kushida harbors an incredibly dark, obsessive hatred for Ayanokoji and Horikita, because they know her true, venomous personality. But how exactly does Yagami plan to weaponize her? If Kushida is fully unleashed on this isolated island with zero administrative oversight, the worst-case scenario for Ayanokoji isn't just losing exam points, it's total social assassination followed by immediate, undeniable expulsion.
Is Yagami going to use her to frame Ayanokoji for a violent crime, like the cliff attack? Or is she just highly effective bait for a much larger, darker trap? The episode cuts off just as Yagami agrees to reveal everything, leaving us dangling over a narrative cliff just as steep as the one Komiya and Kinoshita were violently pushed off. The invisible war for Ayanokoji's head has finally breached the surface, and nobody is safe.
This uninhabited island exam just turned into an absolute bloodbath, and I guarantee you the worst is still yet to come. How on earth is Ayanokoji going to dodge Tsukishiro's secret fleet? And what exactly is Yagami's twisted master plan for Kushida? Drop your theories below. Make sure to subscribe to Zero Anime, and I'll see you in the next one.